it's unfortunate that on the 20, I'm sorry, start over on that. It's unfortunate that on a day when we record 25 deaths, which take us above 3,000 deaths for Dallas County since COVID began nearly a year ago, the governor has removed all of the state orders that he designed to protect you and the people that you care about from contracting COVID. But for us here in North Texas, and for all Texans, we need to focus not on what the governor tells you the law allows, but what on doctors and the facts and the science that we all know well at this point tell us is necessary to keep us safe and give us our best chance of reaching herd immunity as quickly as possible. And those things remain the same. That's wearing a mask, that's washing your hands frequently, avoiding crowds, foregoing get-togethers, doing those things that we need to do until we can reach herd immunity and until more people can get the vaccine. Currently here in Dallas County, only 13.5% of our population has received their first shot, only 7% their second shot. We'll give our first Johnson & Johnson doses today, but up until now, everyone has needed 2 shots. So that means only 7% of our population has been fully vaccinated. We need to continue to care for one another and to do the Texan thing of being friendly and recognizing that others are depending on us to keep them safe as well as ourselves safe. So keep wearing your mask, keep doing what you've been doing. I think most Texans are spurred not by what the governor demands of them, but just what a good neighbor does for one another, which is to protect each other in this time of a pandemic. And by the way, guys, I cannot, on however this thing works, I can't see me. So I don't even know if I'm on your camera or if I'm lined up and there are half my head's gone. But if it is, somebody tell me and I'll move around. Any questions?
This is Renuka Rayasam at Politico. I was curious, did Abbott talk to you or any of the other county judges and mayors about this order and the timing of this order?
No, this governor, unlike the previous governors, does not communicate with county judges and mayors.
Judge, but following up on that, Nic from the Dallas Morning News, there did seem today at your meeting some sense that this was coming down the pike. Was this just prognosticating on the behalf of the court given the governor's tweet last night, or?
Well, I suppose so. If you're asking me what was going through the minds of other people's heads as they tried to guess what he's doing, it's hard for me to say. Usually, though, when you see him tweeting, like the last time he tweeted 2 beer stands clinking together, and then he opened up all the bars and spiked COVID for us in the fall. So last night's tweet was some indication that he would bend to the people on his right who want him to get rid of all of the state orders.
Judge, this is Bret Jaspers at KERA. I'm wondering if you heard from businesses at all of what they feel about the mask mandate. Does it help them conduct their business? Does it hinder them? I imagine it's easier to tell customers to mask up.
Yeah, it hinders them. So we have not had a chance to talk yet as the Dallas sides here know. I've been in commissioner's court, literally was still there while the governor was speaking, finishing up their closed session, multitasking between the 2 things. And, and then had to deal with some vaccine stuff. So I haven't had a chance to talk to business leaders yet. We will talk later today, but as we already know what the answer to that is, the business leaders were very thankful when Dallas County passed an order that required businesses, not individuals, but businesses, to have people wear masks inside their business because it allowed them to protect their workers, say at the grocery store, and say, hey, I'm sorry you don't want to wear a mask, but it's a county order. It gave them that layer of security. So if someone was going to be mad at someone, they could be mad at me and not the business. And so anytime you do away with those things and you're in a service business, like a grocery store or any other place where customers frequent, it is going to put your people at risk. I've already had, people one person call me that has a county staff of three or I don't know how many people they have, but a lot of county employees that interface with the public. And they were like, Judge, what are you going to do to protect my clerks? And so we'll probably be hearing the same thing from our business leaders. I think what most businesses will do is they will continue to require their customers to mask up and their employees to mask up because it's smart for business. As many of you know, I come from a business background. I still own businesses. And if I can do something relatively easily to protect my workforce and to give customers confidence to come in and buy my goods, right? It's to my benefit that you feel comfortable and you have a good experience in one of my businesses, so you'll come in and you'll spend money. It's to my benefit that my workforce stays healthy. And it's also to my benefit that my workforce trust the C-suite or trust the ownership, because it takes forever to build that trusting relationship with your workforce, but you can lose it very quickly if they feel you're not doing all that you need to protect them. That may be more information than reporters need, but those are the sort of conversations that we would have with our business leaders, many of whom, as some of you know, are friends of mine from 20 and 30 years ago, because that's where I come from.
Judge Stephen Dial, Fox 4, kind of piggybacking off of that, but doesn't it take away some of the bite versus this being a statewide mask mandate? And then now, I just talked to some business owners in Bishop Arts, and all of them said that they're going to continue to require masks. But if store A requires masks, store B doesn't, and you kind of have a trickle down effect of some doing it, some don't. I mean, isn't it going to be harder for businesses to enforce since it's not the law of the land, basically?
I think, yeah, certainly, Stephen, it makes it more challenging when we don't have leadership from the state. It makes it a lot more challenging. And when the state comes in and undercuts the ability of county judges and mayors to lead, that makes it challenging too. But you've got two great things going for you beyond strong local leadership. You've got a business community that cares about their customers, and they're going to stand tall in this. And then you've got people who care about one another. North Texas has a tremendous giving spirit. And so most North Texans who go to the grocery store are just not selfish enough to say, hey, I'm young, I'm healthy. If I get COVID, it's not that big of a deal. And I don't really care if I expose somebody who's caring for a special needs child at home with a bunch of underlying conditions. I don't really care if I expose an elderly person or a person that's HIV positive or whatever, because it's all about me. There's just not that many of us here in North Texas that think that way. So I think you'll still see pretty good compliance with masking inside of essential businesses. Could be wrong, but we'll do everything we can to help businesses make that happen. And I think you'll see a strong response from the business community and a strong response from customers too. Look, Stephen, if you were given a choice of choosing between a grocery store where everyone wore a mask or a grocery store where 50% of the people wore a mask, you would likely choose, and so would everybody else on this call, at a time when we're in a pandemic, where 25 people were reported dead today, and even with our numbers lower, right? I think today's numbers were, I believe, 751. I may be slightly off on that. 751 new cases. Well, if we were just 3 months ago, that would be 3 or 4 months ago, that would be one of the highest days on record. So we still got a lot of risk out there. And I think when given the choice, people are going to gravitate towards businesses that they feel safe in. It's really, that's a big part of owning a business. People will not come back to your business if they don't feel safe there, if they don't feel that it's cleanly, if they don't feel that they're getting a square deal and a good price. It's all part of it, but safety is the number one thing. Nobody comes back to a business unless it's maybe an amusement park where they feel that they took their life in danger to go there.
Judge, this is Juan Pablo Garn. I'm from the Texas Tribune. In previous situations, we've found as days go by that there's like a lot of like gray area, things that are not clear. There's been tensions, between specifically with the mask mandates, and we remember when Judge Wolf in Bexar County set up this particular regulations for businesses. From what you've been able to see from this order, or what your team has seen, are there any things that are not very clear there, or do you expect that there might be some spaces for tensions given this current new order?
Well, there's always going to be a tension there between the people who are following the science on the local level and the people who are disregarding it on the state level. But others will have to look at that. And then, you mentioned Judge Wolf and Judge Hidalgo and many others, and I will get together and we'll talk about these things as well. Our chief of staff are already starting a text string to begin to think about these things. And I'll be on calls throughout the night with leaders in the business community. But I think the key takeaway for everyone out there in the viewing or reading or listening audience is we got to focus on what keeps us and the community safe and gets us to herd immunity. That is 80% of the people being protected the fastest. And it's very clear. You can listen to Dr. Fauci, who's not a politician, as to how you get there. You wear a mask, you keep your distance, you wash your hands, you avoid those crowds, and you forego those get-togethers for now. The Parkland Center for Clinical Innovation, which is here locally but nationally known for data crunching for hospitals, tells us that if we can average 66,000 shots a week, right now the state is diverting a bunch of our shots to other places. But if we can get the state to stop doing that, and we can average 66,000 shots a week across all providers in Dallas County, and we keep wearing the mask and avoiding those crowds, we can reach herd immunity by June. They did not factor in, and they'll have to rerun their numbers if that mask compliance slips. But if you remember from past studies from UT Southwestern and others, the difference in 68% compliance with all the things doctors say we need to do to be safe from COVID, that is 68% of the population being compliant 100% of the time, or a different number being compliant 90% of the time. But if you get to 68%, the numbers would go down to virtually nothing. But if you're at 59%, they continue to spike up. So it doesn't take much of a shift in the compliance rate to set us back months and months on herd immunity. And what that costs you is human life and hospitalization, but it also costs you billions of dollars in economic vitality. Because until you get to a point where you've reached herd immunity, you can open all the bars and restaurants you want to. You can open all the everything else as you want to. The question is, will the consumers be comfortable going to that place? And to what extent will they spend their money there? And to what extent will they have money to spend there? Because how strong will your economy be? When we reach herd immunity, which is when 80% of people have some protection, doesn't mean 80% are vaccinated. It means 80% have either had COVID within the last 3 or 4 months, so they have some protection, and 80% and the rest have been vaccinated, that's when you're really going to see consumer spending increase, people feeling more comfortable going out, doing the sort of things, making the sort of purchases that help business and help our economy.
Hey, Judge. This is Matt Goodman with the governor's order leaves a lot of these occupancy decisions up to the businesses. Do you have any guidance for the business community as they consider what's safe to reopen or expand?
Sure. So my guidance to the business community would be my same guidance to individuals. We know what the facts and science tell us. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that masks work. We know that distancing works, hand washing and sanitation works, limiting crowd size works. So do the things that the facts and the science tell you will keep your employees and your customers safe. And you'll be rewarded by customers that trust you and believe in you, and employees that trust you and believe in you. If we all do that together, we can still reach herd immunity sooner rather than later.
Just to clarify, do we know if local officials like you can require businesses to have mask mandates under this order, or is that part of the conversation that you're going to have with the other judges?
Well, I believe we currently have a mask mandate for businesses here in Dallas County. So that is part of what we'll have to look at. That was, if you recall, Juan, Pablo, that was in effect before Governor Abbott's statewide mask mandate. So if you recall, Governor Abbott infamously said months ago when Nelson Wolff implemented a mask mandate, about 3 weeks after the Attorney General had tried to strike down our mask mandate, that Nelson or Judge Wolff had uncracked the code as if there was like a secret code to figuring out how you can get around the governor and protect your people. And after they let that one stand, which was very similar to the one they tried to knock down here in Dallas, everyone modeled one after the one in Bexar County. And so your large urban counties all have those currently that are still in place. I didn't see anything in the governor's order that would strike those down, but that is one of those things that we'll all be looking at. Again, it is much easier for you've got several things happening. That may happen. You may have to where those mask mandates can stay in place on business, and that may help business. And that's one of the things I'll be talking to a lot of business associations and leaders about. And even if the governor comes in and undercuts that, you're still going to have most businesses who are going to opt to do things that make their employees believe they care about their employees, and make their customers believe that they care about their customers, because it's in their financial interest to do so, as well as being the right thing to do.
Judge, can you foresee DSHS? Sorry, this is Hadi Mawagdi from KLIF News.
Yeah.
Can you foresee DSHS including this third group now because of these lowered restrictions? I would imagine these customer service employees are at a higher risk now than older individuals because of the mask mandate.
Well, it's kind of two questions. I do think that, Hadi, you're going to see 1C come out. 1C will include some essential workers, I think. For instance, I've seen in the 1C list, media, for instance, is on there, as are court personnel. I believe school teachers might be on that, but that, they'll have to release that and have to work through it all and release it. But the second part of your question is a little bit difficult. I want to make a point with this. So doctors, whereas statisticians might agree with you, Hadi, that statistically now, if I'm in an essential workplace, and no one's wearing a mask and everyone is in close contact with me, I might be more exposed and statistically more likely to get COVID than a 75-year-old. Okay. But remember that what we know is that certain ages and certain underlying conditions are still statistically much more likely to go to the hospital or even die from COVID. So it wouldn't be a situation where you would want to put off vaccine for your older population to get to your essential worker population. I don't believe that would be what DSHS would try to do. What they would look at is, and I think the governor alluded to this in his comments today, by the end of the month, at least in places where the governor's not diverting the shots away from them, they should be able to get all of the seniors who want a shot the opportunity to get a shot. We've been focusing a lot on our seniors. And so once you've gotten all the seniors who want a shot the opportunity to get a shot, makes all the sense in the world to get all of the essential workers who want a shot. I do think you're going to see, even in the face of this bad news today, there's a lot of good news out there. Our first shipment of Johnson & Johnson arrived this morning. We're going to give a few of those shots today and a lot more over the week. That new vaccine will result in 20 million Americans getting a one-shot vaccine by the end of this month. And it's just going to keep growing after that. You're going to see more shots coming out of the vials at Moderna and Pfizer as the Defense Production Act's ramp up of 1 cc syringes puts those 1 cc syringes, which are pretty impossible to find now, in the hands of the people that give shots. That adds a couple of doses out of every vial. And you're seeing a lot more production out of Pfizer and Moderna. And so a lot more people are going to get vaccinated. That's really going to help us. And as you get your older people vaccinated and your most vulnerable, your diabetics and people that are the most vulnerable, then your hospitalization numbers are going to go lower. That's one place where I would tend to, agree with Governor Abbott today when he said he didn't think the hospitalization numbers for COVID would go back above 15%. Hopefully not, because we're focusing these early vaccines on the people that are most likely to be hospitalized. And so, barring just a complete disregard for safety on the part of our people, we should be able to keep those hospital numbers under 15%. The main thing that's happened today is we just pushed off by a few months when we'll reach herd immunity. And we pushed off or pushed up the number of people who will experience and get COVID. And that's unfortunate. We don't know what the residuals from getting COVID are. I know with my own family, what we've said is we don't want to find out. We want to do everything we can to protect, for instance, my daughter, who's under the age where she can get a shot, because you just don't know what a virus that's this serious may do to someone in their 30s, who's a teenager in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. So, if we loosen our mask restrictions and we have 10% of people, less people wearing their mask, and 10% of people doing things that they wouldn't have done otherwise, but for this message, then you're going to have a lot more people that end up getting COVID. It's going to take us that much longer. Remember that when the governor did his last tweet and announcement, it was as Nic and I talked about earlier, it was 2 beer steins clinking together, and then he announced that the bars were open. There were plenty of people who didn't feel comfortable going to a bar and said, hey, I'm not doing that, but it's probably fine to have a few friends over to play cards or watch the ball game or have my family over for Sunday lunch, including the ones who, don't live here. And we saw the numbers spike up, partly because we know bars are super spreaders. But the second piece of that spike is when you send out a message, it's fine to go to a bar, or you don't need to wear a mask anymore, or we can all sit shoulder to shoulder, 100% occupied, wherever you want to. The message that you send is things are magically better and you can do what you did in 2018. People are going to take that information, run with it, and unfortunately, they and their families are going to pay a price for it.
Hey, Judge, it's Nic Garcia again. You keep bringing up this idea that we have to push off herd immunity because of this, but this might be uncouth, but don't we also reach herd immunity by more people getting COVID? I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously there is going to be a loss of life and we don't want that, but is it really true that we're going to push off herd immunity because of that?
Well, you know, I would defer, as I mentioned earlier to you, Nick, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. So I would defer to PCCI locally and several other people nationally that are looking at that. And I have not seen, you know, as I said, PCCI, which stands for Parkland Center for Clinical Innovation, did not contemplate when they did their numbers that the mask mandate would be removed. What they said is in their press conference, to reach herd immunity, several things needed to happen. Compliance needed to stay at a static level. We need to keep our mask on, keep doing what we're doing. So we need to get 66,000 vaccines starting last week and give them out each week. Those were the main things that needed to happen. So you pulled one of those two away. I don't know. They did look at, with the governor diverting shots from Dallas County, there was the week he diverted 21,000. He's diverted a lot more since then. That pushed us off to late August or September on herd immunity. What the mask orders, the lifting of those orders does, I'd leave it up to them.
Judge, this is Clayton Neville with WBAP. With the announcement today from the governor, there's a lot of Dallas County residents and business owners who are now having to move forward, make decisions on how they respond to it. But they're doing that with conflicting messages from their governor and from their county judge. So what message do you have for them on why that continues to happen and how they should respond to that when making their decisions with two conflicting county leaders or state leaders?
So the governor is focused on what is legal, and I am focused on what the doctors, the facts, and the science say will keep you safe. If you're interested in knowing what you can get away with, listen to the governor. If you're interested in knowing what doctors say will keep you, your business, and your family safe, listen to me and the doctors.
Judge, another question from Juan Pablo Garn in the Texas Tribune. We saw prior to this announcement that Mayor Turner and Judge Hidalgo sent a letter asking the governor to not do this. We saw also the mayor of Austin and the county judge in Travis to do the same, and actually the letter is exactly the same word by word. Did you send a letter too? And if you did you send a letter with the mayor here, with Mayor Johnson?
No, we did not send a letter to the governor. I did talk to people at the state level about the importance of keeping the mask mandate in particular. But we did not send something in writing to the governor about that. Any other questions, guys, before? Is there anybody before Hadi, and I will answer your question, Hadi, but is there anybody on this call who hasn't asked a question who wants to?
Yes, me, Johana Suarez from Univision. May I ask a question?
Dude, I knew, Johana. I knew there were some people out there that were just so nice. They were like, I'll just wait my turn. So go ahead. What's your question?
I'm sorry, I jumped a little bit late. Your reaction to the governor's announcement today. I just spoke with Judge Whitley. When would it been a good time for you to open up Texas 100%, businesses in Texas 100%, and what's going to happen with schools?
So a good time would be when the people who have trained their entire adult life to combat infectious disease pandemics advise that it is. And so that is going to be your public health directors, your infectious disease chiefs at major hospitals. Doctors would tell you based on what they're seeing when it is a good time to do that. Your epidemiologists that study epidemics. I don't know when that would be. I know that if we keep doing what we're doing today and we vaccinate more and more people, the doctors believe we can reach herd immunity by June. I don't know because they haven't told us yet what that means as far as opening Texas. When you look at that Dallas County COVID.org color chart that we put out based on doctor recommendations, it talks about certain metrics that move you from red, where we currently are, to orange, where I believe we can get to soon, to yellow, to green. At green, that would be the new normal of as good as it gets before we absolutely defeat COVID. Right now, unfortunately, based on metrics that were put in place early on in this pandemic by the doctors, we're still well into red, but moving towards orange. Does that answer your question, Johana, or did I miss it?
Yeah. Yes, no, that was perfect. Judge Whitley told me that he would have preferred after, obviously our case is different. We're just moving into orange after a spring break. And also what's going to happen with schools, because we haven't heard anything from TEA so far.
I have not, of course, the governor came out with his announcement while I was still in commissioner's court. I have not talked to the school superintendents since the governor's, announcement. I'm sure I'll have a busy evening talking to many people, about their concerns, but I don't have any information about schools right now.
Thank you, Judge.
I hadn't forgotten about you, Hadi, but is there anybody else on here who hasn't asked a question yet and wants to?
I would like to. This is Bethany Erickson. I'm with People Newspapers. March 10th, and I know this because I just finished a story about this. March 10th marks our first, the anniversary of the county's first COVID cases. And almost a full year since the state started registering cases as well. Do you think that part of this rush to open everything is just we're reaching this big, the end of a full year and people are just kind of done with with all of this? Is this, I know there's an immense amount of political pressure for the governor to do this, but is this something more psychological than scientific?
It's more political than public health, would be another way to say it. So look, the facts have not changed about how you protect yourself from COVID because an order has changed, right? Masks didn't suddenly become less effective. Distance didn't become less effective. You didn't have, germs didn't need to be washed off your hands differently between today and the close of business on Wednesday. We just need to focus on what it is that will keep our families, our communities, and our businesses safe. And that's those tried and true methods that are your first line of defense until we can all get vaccinated. That's wearing a mask, it's maintaining distance, it's avoiding crowds and foregoing get-togethers and washing your hands frequently. Did that get you, Ms. Erickson?
Yes, that did. Thank you.
Who else will let Hadi or somebody close this out? But I want to get everybody a question if they want to ask one. Anybody else on here that hadn't asked a question who wants to? Okay. Hadi, what do you got?
Hey man, you mentioned politics there, and I guess I just wonder, you're kind of saying, hey, if you want to hear the facts, listen to me and the scientists. If you want to hear the law, speak to the governor. You worried that's going to continue to impact the number of shots and doses that are sent to Dallas County if you're speaking up against the governor?
No, Hadi, I made my piece early on that I'm just going to speak. I'm going to listen to the science. I'm going to act decisively on the science, and I'm going to tell people the truth. And so I've got to keep doing that. And the facts are very clear that they're diverting shots from Dallas County. For instance, in week 10, we had about 43,000 shots in Dallas County. They took 21,000 from us in week 11. They took another 11,000 from us on those week 10 numbers in week 12. That's 32,000 shots. But Hadi, since that time, the state has received nearly 300,000 doses above that baseline in week 10. We're 9.1% of the population. Tarrant County is 8-something% of the population. We have received, between the two counties, 0% of that extra 300,000 shots. So here in Dallas County, it's a little over 27,000 shots that we have not received. I'm going to keep pointing that out, and I'm going to keep being honest with people, because that's the best way to keep people safe, is to tell them the truth and do all I can to help them. Hey, thank you all, guys, for your time. I hope this was helpful. I hope you all stay safe. I hope when 1C rolls around, you young media folks, you get in line and get your shot. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Judge.